another month has passed between me doing my last reptile room tour, and so, of course, it is time for another one. Now, I don't actually usually do them every month, or I haven't in years gone by, but in 2019 we've got lots of things to talk about because things keep changing, and that is mainly because he keeps destroying things. Well, no, it's not actually, but you get the point. But anyway, I've got stuff to talk about today, so we may as well do another reptile room tour. I'll show you around all my reptiles enclosures, talk about how they're doing if you already know what they are, and also introduce them if you're new to the channel. But anyway, without me going on for too long, let's crack on with the video. Now, whilst I've already mentioned him, it would seem like a fitting start to the video to talk about Char the Bearded Dragon, who is just to my right, and you always see running around in the background of these videos, bobbing his head as he's probably going to do now. No, he's just going to fall miserably. But anyway, I do have some stuff to talk about with him, so we may as well start there. Now, the first thing to talk about is how he's been getting so much better with eating his vegetables. At first, when I got him, he picked off a few the first day I had him, and I thought, I've actually got that one beardie in a million that actually likes his veg. But then pretty soon after that, me hopes were let down, and he just completely wanted to eat bugs for ages. But then after waking up from brumation this year, which is his first winter, so he is pretty young to have gone into brumation, but I'll talk about that again in the future without going on too much of a tangent. Anyway, he woke up and was a lot more into his veg this year, and he's been hitting it better and better and better each time. So for this video, I thought I'd go and pick some weeds, because I do grow weeds for him in some pots in the garden because they're much healthier for them than what you can get out the shop. But he is doing really well eating those, so I decided to hand feed him some, and I did film this for you, so I'll play that now. Let's see if you want this then, buddy, eh? What's this? Good boy. Hey? It's a good lad, isn't it? Eating his weeds. I promise you now that he would not have done this just like a month ago even. 2 months definitely wouldn't. But tastes obviously change. Enough of that one. No? Nope. Gonna eat the whole thing for us. That would be nice. Hey? I'll try some of the other one. What about this? What's that one? Do you like that? On that one? Was that one not as good? No? Are you full? You're something, aren't you? Eh? What? Oh! There we go. Oh, good boy. Bit of dandelion and a bit of clover. Want the stalk at all? Go on. No, that's the way. And the last one. Let's see if you want this. While I throw that stalk on the floor. Come on, Char, you usually love this one. Hey? What this? Look at that. Oh, yum yum. Oh, don't bite me finger, please. Kinda hard reaching. Come on then, what's this? Come and get it. Good boy. Hey? Are you about full up there? Ooh, that's a good bit, isn't it? Oh. Eat the whole thing while you're at it, go on. And of course, any extra bits can go to the cleanup crew. As you can probably gather from those clips, and also the behaviour of Char the Beardy from behind me, he is doing really well. Honestly, I couldn't ask for much more from him. He runs around, guards his territory and stuff, and then of an afternoon he tends to go and have a nap after he's worn himself out. He bobs his head and scratches the glass and does everything that a beardy really should do. Now, one thing you might have noticed from the feeding clips was that he doesn't have his halogen heat lamp anymore, because that did actually blow. I've basically had complete bad luck with halogen lamps. First I bought a 100 watt Arcadia one, and that wouldn't fit in the bulb guard, so I had to send that back. Then I got a 100 watt one from Lucky Reptile, and that broke after 3 weeks. So I got the money back for that one, luckily. But basically, halogens just don't seem to be working for me, whereas the ceramic heat emitter and DP projector combo is working really well. Now, the thing is with bearded dragons is that they are heliocentric, meaning sun-seeking, so they do like that bit of light to go alongside the basking spot. And rather than go for a halogen, I have come up with a sort of what I think is going to be a better plan that can use sort of elements that are going to actually have decent lifespans and not be extremely expensive, but will have all the benefits of a halogen. And that upgrade will be taking place this month, so do stick around for that. You have a dig there, Char, that's a good boy. And that, guys, is why I will always recommend loose substrates for reptiles rather than solid ones, because this is what a bearded dragon wants to do. He wants to dig a burrow, and just keeping them on like tiles and stuff is not going to allow him to do that. Just to give you a brief rundown of this little fella's setup, it is a 5x2 by 2 foot bioactive enclosure. Obviously you saw from the feeding clip that his cleanup crew does tend to live under there. I keep it nice and moist with some sphagnum moss so that it doesn't dry out, but any stray wood lice, this fella does make sure to eat them straight away. As you can tell, he is dead active. That there is just a spare ceramic heat emitter, because as I mentioned in the past, this is an unheated room and in the winter it can get cold, so that's just an emergency heater. His substrate, which people have asked me about a lot, is Arcadia's Earth Mix Arid. He just tried to jump up the glass. Yes, I'm talking about you. Anyway, his substrate is Arcadia's Earth Mix Arid, topped with Pro Rep Beardy Life. It is looking a bit browner than I'd like, so I have got some red sand and I will top it up this month. And then of course over here we do have his basking platform. I've got that cork piece there that is relatively flat, and he looks like he might be going over 2 now. And this is where he basks. But there are a couple of changes to make with this setup that we'll be doing this month. But anyway, for right now, that is pretty much it for Char. So let's move on to something else. Yes, we should, shouldn't we, Char? Hello to you too. And now he's head bobbing. I think he's trying to actually climb up the back of this chair, because people argue about whether they can tell whether glass is like an actual barrier, and sometimes I do wonder. So anyway, moving on from Char the Beardy, we are going to talk about Red the Corn Snake, who is in the setup to my left. You can probably tell that his enclosure is a lot darker than Char's. It always was, for the main fact that the UVB bulb provided the only light in each of the setups. Red's is a T5, whereas Char's is a T5, whereas Red's is a T8, and T8's aren't as bright. And then also, which is an even bigger factor, is the fact that Red's light is only 3 feet long, whereas Char's is 4 feet long, because beardies are sort of more reliant on the UV, and I wanted to create more of a shady zone for my corn snake. Now, the reason why Red's enclosure is extra dark this month is because I have had to install one of Arcadia's new Lamp Guard Pros, which are, honestly, it is basically exactly what I needed, because Red was actually starting to pull down his UVB bulb from its clips on quite a regular basis, and he was actually managing to break the cable clips, like attaching the cables to the roof of the enclosure, so it was getting quite dangerous. He could have pulled one of the nails out the roof of the Viv, so I decided to get that fixed sooner than later. But because it is quite dark in there now, I do have an LED that I'm going to fit at the same time as I'm doing the upgrade for Char, so that will be later on this month. Now, as you can tell, Red has really become very, very active over the past few months, really. Since brumating him and since him waking up, he has been far, far more active than he has ever been in the past. And as you can probably tell by the state of his water bowl, he does like messing things around a lot. What he will tend to do at this time of the day is just sort of lie out and bask, and he often falls asleep. He's awake right now, as you can tell, but what he'll probably do is he'll go asleep and just lie out in the light, and then sort of in the morning and of an evening he does become more active, and I do like to take him out because occasionally he comes up to the glass and he just seems to beg to come out. His enclosure is exactly the same size as Char the Bearded Dragon's, 5 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, and it is, as you can probably tell, bioactive. Now, since last time I have changed the plants around a bit because they were basically completely uprooted. How they were staying alive, I don't know, but I've buried the roots and hopefully they'll do okay. But the leaf here, this big one, is turning yellow and dying. So what I'm thinking of doing is taking the plants out, growing them in pots, and once we have a nice big root ball, transferring them, but we'll see how that goes. And then as well, I did change out the layout of the wood a bit, because it was just sort of looking like everything was balanced on this one long piece of wood running through here, so I did decide to change it up a bit. Either way, Red is doing really, really well. He does enjoy exploring his setup and burying in the leaves, and if you follow my Instagram page then you'll see just how friendly he is. Honestly, out of all my reptiles, in terms of like personal interaction, Red the corn snake is by far the best. He's just so friendly, like whenever I open the door he'll come over and explore and come out and things, and he's just a real joy to handle. I mean, Char is probably the most personable of my reptiles, but he's more sort of an animal to enjoy from afar. You can't really hold him. It's like he wants to run round and explore and climb things, whereas Red is, as a corn snake, a lot slower and a lot more happy to just crawl around my arms and stuff. So in terms of a pet to just hold and enjoy, he is really, really amazing. Moving one up from these, we will have a look at Speckles the leopard gecko, who lives up here. Now, as you can see here, like Char, Speckles does like to have a bit of a dig. You can perhaps tell that there is soil flicked over this piece of wood, and I've not put it like that. That is because Speckles has actually dug out this hole himself, and this is how I find him most days now, with just his tail and his back legs sticking out of his hide. And this is a phenomenon that we do like to call cryptic basking. So cryptic basking, or partial basking, is where a reptile or any other animal reaps the benefits of the sun's emitted radiation without actually directly exposing themselves to the environment. So basically, as my corn snake and leopard gecko and crested gecko all do on a regular basis, they basically hide themselves, but not in such a way that they're in complete darkness. Speckles sticking his tail out like that is a really obvious one for it, because he doesn't need his entire body out in the UVB light in order to reap the benefits from it. As long as he's got part of his body out, it is still affecting him and he is getting what he needs out of it. So whilst many species will not actually bask openly like a bearded dragon or an anole will, most of them, if not all of them, are going to cryptic or partial bask in some way, and this is what you can see my leopard gecko doing in these clips. Now, Speckles' enclosure is doing really quite well, and he is starting to make a lot more use out of it. This partial basking is something that he's only started doing sort of recently, now that he's got all settled in since we set this up. And he has also started using, apologies for the glare, he has started using this hide a lot, which again I've posted on my Instagram page, but you can see he likes lying on this side here, which is why all the moss is being kicked out. And of an evening he does very frequently, just before lights off, come out and bask fully, but this is how you tend to see him most of the time. His enclosure is a 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. It is bioactive like all of my other setups. It did have a lot more plants in this to start with. Well, it had one more, but this one's basically dying now, I think. Although the gasteria back there is actually growing pretty well, so I am happy with it. And honestly, this setup is just doing really, really well. Speckles himself is, of course, doing really, really well. There aren't actually any of my animals that I'm worried about at all at the minute, which is fantastic. So we won't spend too long talking about him, and we will move on to the next reptile. So second to last, I will talk about the line day geckos, or the Phelsuma lineata bombertokensis. Now, I did do an enormous update on these, and they were all out last week. Well, both of them were out and running round and stuff, so I did get loads and loads of clips of them. And they aren't out this week, so if you do want to see more of them, then do check out that video, and I will throw up a link to it around now. Last week I showed you how to clean the glass on it, or how I clean the glass on this enclosure, and how you can clean the glass for reptiles or amphibians that are small and flighty without them escaping while you take the paint out. But there is still loads of condensation forming on this glass, and honestly it's just because I have so many plants in such a small enclosure. So I am thinking about changing up the planting, moving some of that Pilea spruciani, I think it's called, to the back and swapping it with the Fittonia, because the Fittonia is basically just in the dark because the other plants have grown past it, and it doesn't really grow at all. It's like it was growing really slowly anyway, so maybe that would be a better fit at the front and put the Pilea behind, so then we'll get less condensation on the glass. But let me know what you think about that. Dale from DMS Vivarium did give me the tip that I could get a bit of heat cable, wrap it around the dowel and put it at the base of the enclosure, so that it would create a sort of hot air current at the front and it would clear the glass, which is something I'll definitely consider doing. But before I go for that, I do just want to try a couple of other things, because it would just sort of be a little bit awkward to implement. Last but not least is Splat the Crested gecko, who is doing his own bit of partial basking directly underneath the UVB bulb, but sort of shaded by the plants, kinda like what Speckles is doing. Doing the usual thing of taking a look at his setup first, you can see that it is doing really well. The anthurium's putting out some new flowers. And I did also decide to take some cuttings of the aluminium plant that was growing in the line day geckos enclosure and put them in here, because I am sort of phasing that plant out of the line day gecko setup because it just grew too fast and the condensation on the front panes was even worse. I know you didn't see it before, but that was because I wiped it off for the purpose of the video. But anyway, I am hoping that it will do quite well in here. Now, as I mentioned, I am going to be getting some more of the skylights to put on this setup, because as you can tell, the light I've got at the minute is a very good light, and what's underneath it grows well, but it just doesn't throw the illumination out the same. So I want to get some of those skylights to make sure that it's not just like a beam of light being chucked into the enclosure, and hopefully the plants will go a bit better, because at the minute I have been having to move that plant growth light around, or otherwise the plants were just dying that weren't directly under it. But because I've been moving it about, you can see that the bromeliads aren't blushing now, so it's just sort of not ideal, and that is why I'm upgrading the lighting. Splat the Crested, of course, as I've said, none of my reptiles are doing badly at all. He's doing perfectly fine, he's eating exactly as he should. He's an absolute champ when it comes to bugs. I know some crested geckos don't eat them, which seems strange to me, and I think it's something to do with the way people aren't keeping them. Personally, I feel that a lot of crested geckos are under-energized, the way I see them, and how different it is to the way mine behaves, but I will talk about that again. So as I say, Splat's doing really well. I don't really see him that much relative to my other reptiles because he does hide all day, and I am admittedly a bit of an early nighter, so I don't get to see him come out of a night, which is when he's mainly active, and he doesn't like being held at all, so I do just leave him be, but either way he is still a cool pet to own. So then guys, that does just about bring us to the end of the video. Now, as I hope you can gather, I do have a lot of upgrades planned for this month. Lighting changes for char, lighting changes for red, lighting changes for speckles, and also some changes in the mix for the line day geckos with the planting. Anyway though, that is it for today's video, and I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, it would help out the channel a lot if you could subscribe, and if you do have any questions for me, then do chuck them down in the comments section, because I've got a Q&A coming very soon. Might be next week's video or the week after that, I'm not too sure yet. And that is going to be a collab with John's Rainforest Room, so it is going to be a very special video, and I do hope that you will enjoy it. Now then, that is it from me today, and I will see you in the next video. So I'll see you then. Bye guys. Woof, woof, woof. 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 I